wet straw and cold iron. That is the smell of Bethlem before you see a single wall of it. River damp off Moorfields settling on your skin like a second, colder dress. You are 19 the day the gate shuts behind you, and the lock turns with a sound you will still be hearing in your sleep years from now. Above the arch, two stone madmen watch you go in, one raving against his chains, one slumped and past caring. Someone carved them to greet every soul who enters, and now they greet you. On paper, as of this morning, you are a lunatic. They tell you this is good news. Bethlem does not take everyone. It takes those it believes it can mend, and mend fast. So to be wanted here means a stranger has looked at you and decided your mind is broken, but fixable, and fixable soon. Congratulations. Being wanted by this place is the worst thing that has ever happened to you. Curable ones this way, the rest don't come back out. The building behind him is enormous, all long windows and grand gray stone, built to be admired from the road. It was raised to impress the people who might give it money, to turn the trouble of those inside into coins from those passing by. You are about to learn what they came to see. Two stone madmen watch you go in. How many winters do you think you'd have lasted inside before your face became one of theirs? Pick your number now and tell me below. By the end, you'll know how close you came. By nightfall of that first day, still 19, the ledger has you. A man writes down your name, your trade, whether you have a husband, the date they brought you in. He leaves one column blank, the one for the day you walk out or the day you die, whichever the book fills in first. Then he writes a second name beside yours, your security. Someone out there is now liable for the cost of keeping you, paying week by week to hold you behind this gate. Your freedom has a price, and you are not the one who pays it, which means you are not the one who can end it. Names in the book don't argue, girl, sit still. You want to tell them there has been a mistake, that you are not mad. But you learn the first cruel rule before the ink is dry. In here, insisting loudly that you are sane is exactly what a madwoman would do. The more you protest, the truer their book looks. You feel the words climbing your throat and you swallow them, because the only proof of a sound mind this place accepts is silence. The keepers are not doctors. They carry keys, not medicine. They are little more than guards, and the galleries they lock behind you are cold stone, thin straw, and gruel gone tepid before it reaches your hands. Some on the ward wear irons. Some are bound into a straight waistcoat with the arms strapped across the chest, for no crime but being hard to manage. This is not a place that heals. It is a place that keeps. Your first summer inside, you turn 20, and the doors open. Not for you, but for London. Bethlem lets the public in. The great building was raised partly to draw them, to turn the misery behind its windows into money from strangers who wanted a look. You are the look. You are the misery on display. They come in their good coats and walk the galleries as though strolling a garden. Some bring children. Some drop money in the box by the door and feel generous for it. A woman stops in front of you and studies your face the way you might study the weather. Look at that one. Do you suppose she knows we're here? You know exactly. Their laughter lands on your skin the way the cold does, finding every gap in you. You feel your face begin to burn, and you hold it still because a flinch is a performance, and a performance is what they queued for. Giving them nothing is the only power the gate left you. Keep moving, sir. The dangerous galleries upstairs. The keeper herds them along like a man showing prize animals. And then he says a word about you, half to the visitor and half to himself. Curable. He does not mean it kindly, but you catch it and keep it, because for the first time your hope has a handle to hold. Curable. If they believe it, the gate might one day open the way you came in. If this life already has its hand on you, a like helps the next person find it. And subscribe. There's another one waiting behind this gate. Now, back to the cold. By your second winter, you have turned that one word into a plan. To be judged, cured, and let out. That is the whole of your wanting now. Not comfort, not kindness, just the verdict that opens the door. And you have learned the clock ticking behind it. This place admits you believing it can mend you quickly, and a mind that does not mend on time is quietly written down as something else. So you learn the game. You keep your voice low. You make yourself useful. You give the keepers calm and quiet, and no trouble at all, because you have decided that calm is what a mending mind looks like. Then you find the trap inside the game. Quiet is not one thing here. To one keeper, your stillness means you are recovering. To the next, the same stillness means you are dull, sunk, past helping, incurable. Nobody is reading your mind. They are reading their own mood and calling it your diagnosis. You're quieter than you were. That's what they like to see. Mind it stays that way. This keeper, the one with the heavy ring of keys, has begun to speak to you as though you are a person. He remembers your name. He warns you when the physicians are near. It is not friendship. It is the nearest thing to it you have, and you hold it as carefully as the word curable. A flicker of real hope rises in you, and you crush it flat. Because hope shows on a face, and a hopeful, shining face in here looks very much like a raving one. 3 years in, you are 22, and you have made the mistake of loving someone inside these walls. Her name you keep to yourself. She came in a season after you, onto the same gallery, and the two of you learned to trade a look that meant survive today. She is the reason the winters had a middle you could stand. Then the sorting finds her. Bethlem divides the ones it still calls curable from the ones it marks incurable. And incurable is not a treatment. It is a sentence with no end. It means the far gallery, the one where nobody bothers performing calm because leaving is no longer on the table. They come for her on an ordinary morning. She does not fight. She only turns her head to you as they walk her toward the other door. If they ask, tell them I got better. Tell them I went home. You are not allowed to follow. You feel your whole body lean after her, and you plant your feet, because a woman who chases down a locked gallery is a woman who gets strapped down for it. So you let her go with your eyes and nothing else. The far door closes. It is the same kind of door they keep promising will open for you, if only you are good enough. She went through it the wrong way. After that, the gallery is quieter, and you come to hate the quiet, because quiet is the very thing you have been practicing to earn. You are past 30 now. You have stopped counting summers and started counting winters, because winters are what the body remembers. 10 of them, then a dozen. And the days lose their edges until one is much like the last. At night, they strap you into the bed. It is done to nearly everyone. It is simply how the place manages the bodies it would rather not watch until morning. The strap holds you flat in the dark, and you feel your own heart knocking against your ribs, and you make yourself go loose because fighting the strap is only how the strap gets tighter. The keeper with the keys, the one who knew your name, is gone. Moved on or worn down. You never learn which. In his place stands a colder man who owes you nothing and knows none of your history. The old one's gone. I don't know your good days from your bad. Don't test me. The one human gate to your freedom has swung shut, and you feel it close, and there is no way to react that does not make things worse for you. Sometimes a rumor drifts in from far off. Talk of new asylums somewhere beyond the city where, they say, there are no chains at all, where the mad are to be mended by kindness and honest work instead of iron. You listen the way you would listen to a traveler's tale about another country. Perhaps it is even true. But it is not your country, and it is not your gate, and no kindness has yet found its way onto this gallery. The morning the physicians come, the whole gallery holds its breath. You are 33, and the men who decide fates are walking the wards. You have been rehearsing this morning for years without knowing it. Now you perform all of it at once. The low voice, the useful hands, the exact right amount of nothing. You keep your eyes down and your face as smooth as the cold stone. Everything you have learned about surviving, you spend in the space of a single walkthrough. They stop near you. They do not speak to you. They speak over you, to each other, the way the visitors once did, as though you were a fixture that could not hear. This one's orderly enough. Discharge her, we've need of the bed. And there it is. The word you starved for, cure, arriving at last, and arriving as bookkeeping. You are not called cured because anyone looked into your mind and found it mended. You are called cured because your security still pays. The ward is full, and another broken Londoner is waiting at the gate for the straw you are lying on. Your freedom is not a mercy. It is arithmetic. You feel something break loose in your chest that might be joy, and you cannot even name it, because you no longer trust anything that rises in you. You have spent so long crushing hope flat that you have forgotten how to let it stand. They mark you for discharge. After all these years, the gate is going to open the other way, and you find that you are afraid of it. You are 34 the day the gate opens the other way. They give you back your name and point you at the road. And here is the thing no verdict prepared you for. The world that signed for your keep has closed over the gap you left. The people who paid your security did their duty and moved on. The word cured is ink in a book that will outlive you. It is not a welcome, and there is no one at the gate who came to bring you home. So you walk out alone, under the arch, and you look up one last time at the two stone madmen. Going in at 19, it was raving who frightened you, the one straining and screaming against his chains. You were certain you would never become that. Coming out, it is the other one you recognize. Melancholy. The slumped one, the one past caring, the face that gave up. Because that is the face you learned to wear to survive this place. Quiet, still, giving them nothing. You did not go mad in Bethlem. You went silent. And silence is what they finally mistook for a cure. Mind the step. Most of them come back. The two stone madmen never had to prove they were cured to be allowed to stay. And you never got to prove you were sane to be allowed to leave. You simply gave them the right kind of nothing for long enough, and the arithmetic set you loose. Somewhere behind you, the box by the door still waits for coins, and another face is already at the gate. Some pauper the parish could not manage, the way you once were. The gate does not care who it swallows next. It only ever opens one way at a time.